So I was quite surprised that given only like 300 plus subscribers on the YouTube channel itself, there's like I think 3, 4 or 5 mentions of people telling me that hey, there was this Wall Street Journal article saying that Alibaba's cloud business is currently under a huge threat. And there are a lot of people that wanted me to cover this stock. And I received like 4 or 5 pings here and there to say that hey, faster, go and cover this Wall Street Journal article. So your wish is granted, and I think that the article do have some plus points that we can further explore and to really look into what is the intention behind this article and what are they insinuating and whether are there any things that we have to look out for. So let's get right into it. The headline states that Alibaba's winning cloud formula is coming under pressure. ByteDance, a state sector, had been solid customers, but times are getting tougher. So let's go dive into what they mean by times are getting tougher. So pressure is mounting on Alibaba's cloud computing division after years of breakneck expansion. As competition in the industry intensifies and political issues hurt the Chinese company's ability to win business overseas and government contracts at home. So Alibaba investors have banked on cloud computing to drive significant growth as competition in the company's main e-commerce business heats up. In recent months, however, the cloud unit has parted ways with a major customer. So harnessing the power of the internet, during Alibaba's recent earnings call, we know that they lost a huge client in the cloud computing space. And not long after, I think in a few hours or in a day or two, they realized that it was ByteDance, which is TikTok or Douyin's parent company. And they decided to deviate away from Alibaba's cloud infrastructure and maybe to come up with their own in-house one, which will be explored further in the article itself. So I'd just like to say that in the first 2 paragraphs, they did identify one of Alibaba's biggest pain point, which is that in the entire e-commerce space itself in China, it is getting more and more saturated, and the businesses are getting more and more fierce, and the competition is getting more and more heated up. And not only that, I think in comparison, even in the cloud computing space itself and the cloud infrastructure space itself, it's getting more and more saturated. And I'm actually even more worried about the cloud computing space than the e-commerce space, because we know that in the competition landscape of the e-commerce, Alibaba is leaps and bounds in front of its competitors, namely JD.com and Pinduoduo. But in the cloud computing space, we have huge behemoths, like really huge giants, like Huawei, Baidu, and all those, and Tencent Cloud. All these are companies with a very deep pocket, and I think the competition there would be even fiercer and it would be even more heated up. So I think the e-commerce space, Alibaba still has the propensity and still has a huge potential for them to expand. But at least in the cloud computing business, despite Alibaba having the first mover advantage and now having the biggest market share essentially in the entire Chinese market itself, I believe that the other competitors do have the ability to catch up if they are able to deploy capital and innovate at a much faster pace compared to Alibaba Cloud. So Alibaba Group Holding reported their cloud computing revenue grew only 37% in the quarter ended March 31st from the same period a year earlier, the slowest quarterly growth. So if you can just identify in the graph below, Alibaba's cloud quarterly revenue, it was increasing exponentially in 2015 to 2016, and then it starts plateauing down and starts going down. But even at a plateauing rate, it's still hovering around a 50-60%. Only at the last quarter, it dipped down to 37%. We can really make sense of this trend because after 2016 and 2017, more and more all this competition starts coming into the landscape, where you have Baidu, where you have Tencent, you have all these big players start coming in to try to eat up market share from Alibaba itself. And honestly speaking, it is kind of expected because it's the exact same scenario playing out in the US counterpart, where you have Microsoft, where you have Google, where you have Amazon. Everybody is snatching each other's pie. Everybody's innovating at an exponential rate, and a lot of them are scary in terms of their innovation and in terms of their breakthrough. So the moves reflected Beijing's based ByteDance's desire to handle its own fast extending cloud computing needs. So in August, the Trump administration also warned against the use of Chinese cloud computing services, including Alibaba's. So I'd just like to make a point there, maybe just make a disclaimer on my bull thesis of Alibaba Cloud itself. From my understanding, Chinese companies have never needed the businesses of the US counterparts. If you were to really understand and dive deeper and analyze the financial statements of Tencent and Alibaba, for example, most of their revenues are derived internally. And even in the international forum and in the international stage itself, they hardly go into contact with the American counterparts. Because all these huge organizations, like Tencent and Alibaba, is acutely aware of the different political tensions between China and the US. And they know for a fact that this US-China tension is probably here to stay for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. So if they are reliant on each other for growing revenue, for example, like if Alibaba starts expanding into US and starts gaining root, when there's huge political tensions and when when the political leaders start having conflict again, the entire business segment in the respective counterparts would experience a huge amount of disruption, and it's definitely detrimental to the entire business itself. So I think Tencent and Alibaba, from their management's perspective, they do understand this concern and they do understand this risk. Hence, when they do a lot of strategy planning and when they do a lot of expansion planning, they take into account these sensitive issues and make sure that it's made known and that there isn't too much of a risk for the business to bear. And which is also why, if you were to really understand the financials and really dig deeper into the financials of a lot of all these Chinese companies, entire internal domestic consumption is enough to sustain the business, is enough to sustain the revenue. By stating that, hey, Alibaba might be hugely affected or it might be detrimental to the revenue increment, it might make a dent if all the US customers or if all the US investors intend to pull out from using Alibaba's cloud computing infrastructure right now, but it will probably not drive Alibaba to the ground or drive Alibaba Cloud to the ground because they are not reliant on them anyway in the start. And I know that both parties are aware of this issue, which is also why US companies and China companies have been in a very unique relationship where they want to be expounding, where they want to be profiting from each other, yet at the same time they cannot be over-reliant on each other. And they usually just stand a very small percentage of their entire portfolio itself. Alibaba was the first Chinese technology giant to make the foray into cloud computing. It is now the largest provider of cloud infrastructure service in China, and the fourth largest in the world after Amazon, Microsoft, and Google Cloud, according to a research firm. So, however, Huawei Technologies company has been chipping away at Alibaba's cloud market share at home. The Chinese telecom giant almost doubled its market share in China to 16% last year from 2019. Alibaba's cloud computing share fell from 44% to 41% over the same period. So I think there is a problem with just looking at the sheer percentage-wise. It does seem that Alibaba is currently losing their market share, while Huawei Technologies, which was banned in America in the last administration, essentially doubled their market share. It's easy for people from the bottom to start catching up and gain more market share, while usually people that are running a monopoly or usually have the biggest pie in the entire market itself will experience immense amount of competition from all sides. Because from Alibaba's point of view, they have to fend off competitors from everywhere, from Baidu, from Huawei, from Tencent. While Huawei, on the other hand, can just snatch market share regardless of whether it's from Alibaba, Baidu, or Tencent. So it's in a very unique relationship, and these statistics have to be kept in check and do not really be so easily swayed that, oh, Huawei doubled while Alibaba posts a very weak results. So this is just a word of caution. Next, Alibaba Cloud in recent months has run into difficulties winning new contracts or even securing meetings with some of its government and state-owned enterprise clients, according to people familiar with the matter. So, however, Alibaba Cloud isn't completely shut out. It has landed some government contracts in the past few months, according to the government procurement records and company releases. So they ended off by saying that the fierce competition in the government market and the complexity in the private cloud markets are some of the major challenges towards Alibaba's cloud's business growth in the domestic market. So then it comes to the conclusion of this video. Is this the end of Alibaba? And is this the starting of the demise of Alibaba Cloud? I think the short answer is no. But the more nuanced answer would be, I think the entire competition landscape and the competitive atmosphere is exactly the same in the US, where Microsoft, Google, and Amazon is also snatching and putting their hands and legs in the entire cloud pie, because the entire cloud computing industry is a very lucrative one. And you can see why all these big tech companies are all diving deep and trying to innovate and trying to be the market leader in the entire industry itself. And now Amazon seems to be proving and championing their entire way through by saying that Alibaba have the ability to do the same. I would not say that I'm extremely confident that Alibaba is able to emulate whatever Amazon is currently doing in the US market. But moving forward, I think that Alibaba trying to maintain its market share, comfortably hovering at around 35 to 40% market share, would be easy for them to maintain and easy for them to attain. However, as an investor of Alibaba, I will definitely be more ambitious and I will definitely be more aggressive in my assumptions. and would definitely hope that Alibaba's management team and even their capital and even their talents that are innovating in this entire cloud computing space would enable them to ensure that they continuously be the market leader. And I know that this entire thing would probably be a cloud fiesta because we see that even in the e-commerce space itself, only having 3 competitors, Alibaba, JD and Pinduoduo. JD and Pinduoduo is not even such a big size, and they do not have deep pockets, they do not have huge investors backing them up. But in the cloud computing space in China, we have Huawei, Baidu, Tencent. All of these people are crazy. They are like really crazy. So I believe that the entire cloud computing space will be even more saturated. And I did say before that the e-commerce space is already a cloud fiesta. So the entire cloud computing space in China would essentially be a circus. People will be cutting price, people will be innovating, people will be doing a lot of crazy shit in the entire cloud computing space in time to come. And that's my own prediction. You can have your own prediction, but I believe that in order for Alibaba Cloud to remain as the market leader and to be the champion for the entire cloud computing space, they would have to do something spectacular and probably out of the norm in order to beat their competition. And I'm just looking forward what they can do to differentiate themselves in accordance to all these competitors with deep pockets. With that, I hope you gain some value in this video. Please make sure to do your own due diligence. I think this Alibaba cloud computing space is a very interesting one, and in China particularly, and which I will probably dedicate a video solely in discussing about the cloud computing space in China, and maybe just keep a lookout for that video, and subscribe if you want to watch that video if it comes up, and I don't know, hit the bell notification or whatever. So I'll see you in the next video, but more importantly, I'll see you on the moon. Goodbye!